game for the Titans, right? And how many more penalties were called on Tennessee than were called on Dallas? I mean, there is going to be some variance, and there are going to be some calls that may have a little bit of gray area. But when the inconsistency is so clear and obvious to everybody, whether it would have been on the Cowboys that day or the Titans, there is reason for fans to be pissed about that kind of stuff. So now the NFL, finally, I guess somebody actually read the NFL officiating Twitter account mentions that Mike Vrabel tells us to tweet every time we have questions for him about officiating after the game because he's trying to avoid getting fined. You have the circumstance where the NFL is now at a point where they feel like they need to address the officiating, or at least that's what Adam Schefter was reporting earlier this week on the Pat McAfee show. Here is the audio courtesy of Pat McAfee.
There's an issue with the officiating. And when you speak to people around the league, they believe it's as bad as it has been in a long time, maybe ever. And if we go back to the one game that I think of is the Seahawks-Rams game, final regular season game, where the officials missed multiple calls that potentially influenced the outcome of that game. Now, Seattle won. Seattle deserved to go to the playoffs, and good for the Seahawks. This is not a knock in any way against them, but we basically outlined all the calls that the league missed in that game because it shaped the way the playoffs came out.
Yes.
And if they had made some other calls and the Rams had won, it would have gotten the Lions in. And I can tell you this, the Rams were not happy. The Lions were not happy. Other teams were not happy. And guess what? I think the league office themselves, if they were being honest, was not happy with the calls in that game. And after that story ran, and we ran it on that Saturday countdown on ESPN.com, I can't tell you how many calls I got from people on other teams saying, you didn't go far enough.
Yeah, hey, Shefty, what about our game whenever this? What about our game whenever this happened? It's a real problem, Shefty.
Everybody's got their own issues and complaints with the league. They've called the league. And so what do? Honestly, I don't know that I'm smart enough to tell you. That would be a better Dean Blandino question. But I can tell you I've heard a lot about training the officials, the pool of officials, the way they're assigned. There are all sorts of issues here that they need to go over.
So that was Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show. So the idea that the league, privately, is acknowledging that this is starting to become a problem or is very, very much a problem, there is no question that something needs to be done. Now, the solutions, I don't know what I don't like to pose questions without having at least some kind of solution on the table. Like bitching just for the sake of having something to complain about, I don't feel is a productive way, one, to have discourse if you are trying to actually work towards a resolution, or two, do this job, because then we all just end up complaining about the same thing. And what have we done but have the same hamster wheel argument for 3 hours on a sports talk radio show and making the story about the officials as opposed to the players, the coaches, or the game itself. But truly, the more that I think about this, I really struggle with the idea of how you make the officiating better. It's a very difficult job to have. Kirby, you have thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's more simple than anybody wants to give thought to, but it's as easy as this. You go with full-time officials. You lose the old-time lawyers and part-time real estate offices who have money and want to run around out there in the striped suit. And you take the guys that played the damn game in college who aren't necessarily going to make it into the NFL, who have a football mind, and you teach them how to become officials so that you have younger, more mobile and agile people on the field that know what they're supposed to look for, and you quit patting these old guys that have other jobs on the back for blowing call after a call. And the second thing, and this is a big way to go, get the damn officials out of the broadcast booth. And here's why. 70 to 80% of the time, Sarah Tor or the other guy, who were terrible officials on the field for making the right call at the wrong time, or vice versa, they will tell you what's about to happen, and they're never ever right. The officials on the game field go the opposite as well as the replays. Oh, well, this is going to be overturned. Well, it's upheld. I mean, that drives a fan base nuts.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there was a guy for CBS for a while. I can't remember his name. Was it Mike Carey? Mike Carey was the official for CBS who just legitimately got every call wrong. So much so that I think this was Sterator's predecessor. But like it was becoming like a running joke on the broadcast that Mike Carey just could not, for the life of him, figure out what the hell is going on the field. And so I do, the point about making officials full time and removing people who are not as big a part of the game. I don't think it's essential to have former players.
Well, I'm looking at that because of the athletic ability to maintain and to pace out players on that field is the reason why I went that route.
Certainly, I think that there could be a better mix, right? Because you're right. A lot of these guys are like tax attorneys during the day, or maybe not a firefighter,
realtors or whatever. They have different jobs. They have different professions,
jobs than what it is that they are on the field Sundays doing, and obviously playing a huge role in these games. Now, they have had a lot of turnover.
Oh, yes.
As far as the officials are concerned.
It gets worse every time they do.
And it seems like that has expedited the problem in a really meaningful way. But the idea that the NFL is finally acknowledging, publicly or privately, the way that it seems that they are to Adam Schefter and likely other league-wide insiders that way, I think tells you all you need to know. The NFL has a ref problem, and it cannot continue to affect the competitive balance of these games when there is so many different things happening on a football field anyway. It's not like basketball, it's not like baseball where you can control it a little more. You have 22 dudes on the field at one time flying around. You have an odd-shaped ball that bounces any which way that it wants to. You have weather conditions that you have to consider. You have all kinds of different elements that come into play. And then
Coach
all
Mike.
of a sudden, here comes who?
There goes Braves.
Uh-oh. You should.
Looking at the phone.
I should. No, I'll wait to bother him until later.
I love that
guy. I'm sure you two have a unique relationship.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, man.
Anyway, the NFL has a ref problem. Maybe I should text Mike right now and be like, hey, we're talking about the refs. You want to stop by, big guy? No. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Let's talk about Senior Bowl defensive prospects that I'm going to watch for. We're going to talk about offensive guys a little later on in the show. And, of course, Rand Carthon. You'll hear that interview at 12:20 today. Live from the Senior Bowl here in Mobile, Alabama. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back, live from the Senior Bowl here in Mobile, Alabama. Hanging out with you until 1 o'clock today. Rand Carthon at 12:20. Look forward to catching up with the new Titans GM. 615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to jump in at any point. We've been talking about the NFL and their officiating problem. The fact that they're acknowledging that they have an officiating problem is something unto itself. But we invite your participation as well. Go to the phones. John is in Murfreesboro up first. Hey, John.
What's up, Buck? So just a few ideas on fixing the referee situation. As Kirby said, full-time refs, no part-timers. Just allows for more accountability because then these guys don't have something to fall back on. This becomes their job. Make refs answer to the media. If they're going to make a call, they need to stand by it. If they have any doubt about a call, whether it be a crucial call or just an insignificant call, then they don't need to make that call. But if they know that they're going to face you, if Jerome Boger is going to face you after a Titans-Colts game and there's an iffy pass interference call or an iffy holding call or something, he's probably going to think twice about making that call unless he's sure it's there. They should also allow coaches to challenge calls or no calls. Just as they can challenge other plays. Look at the Saints-Rams no call in the NFC Championship as a basis for that. Sean Payton should have been able to challenge that and say that's pass interference all day long.
I appreciate the call, John. But here's my thing, Lucas. Like, because I do acknowledge that there has to be better plans in place or better options in place to make sure that we can get these things right, since we have 75,000 camera angles of everything, and everybody has a better view than the officials do during the game, other than when they go to the replay booth and they decide whether it's the right call or not. Like, doesn't adding additional challenges, doesn't that open up the situation for games to be extended to bog down play? I mean, in reality, we're only watching like 10 minutes of actual game action in a 3.5-hour NFL football game to begin with. I refuse to let the NFL go down the path or a similar path to college football where these games turn into 4.5 hours. It cannot be that way, and I just feel like opening that floodgate for the ability to challenge as basically the coaches see fit, I just feel like that brings such a hindrance to the flow of a game that's already difficult to kind of manage.
Yeah, well, it'll never reach that level of college football because college football has things like the clock stopping on first down,
right,
and far longer halftime breaks, so it would never get that bad. But, I mean, you mentioned just plays that if we can see from that eye-in-the-sky perspective, and that appears to be so clear-cut and obvious, but the officials on the field have a hard time seeing it. Just having that presence all the time, that neutral deciding factor of an eye in the sky, so to speak, that can pinpoint, okay, that was a blown call. We need to fix that, and do it in an efficient manner. And I think there's been efforts to try and do that. I mean, you talk about reviewing every play really quickly, whether if it's a touchdown or a turnover, regardless of the situation. And that's led to, quicker determinations instead of, oh, did he score? Did he not score? Let's go under the hood. Let's go check it out for 5 minutes. But just that on a more consistent basis for even routine plays, like the missed block in the back on that punt return yesterday, the Chiefs that helped put them in field goal range. Just to have one person that can have serve as some sort of accountability or safety net for officials that they don't have to get it right immediately in the moment because there will be someone that can correct it after the fact.
God, I just feel like Mike and Mike, right? The ESPN radio show that was on forever. Like, I feel like when they get down in the summer, they just resort to fixing baseball. Like, I feel like that's what fixing the NFL officiating conversations turn into. There's just so many different things that you can sling at a wall before actual substantive change is made. Now, there's a different. At least the NFL is. You can't call them proactive because obviously they've let it fester to a point where they even feel that something needs to be done. So when the next round of NFL owners meetings come up, I believe Palm Springs is the next one on the docket here in the next couple of months. how much of the officiating situation gets brought to the table, how much the officials want to come to the table on their own. I don't know how much of that gets opened up. They're certainly not looking for any additional scrutiny or anything that they feel is going to make their job harder, and God knows we can't go another season with, or half a season with replacement refs the way that we did that one year. Absolute nightmare scenario. But it's to the point where it's just been allowed to fester for far too long. Now, we're going to talk about some Senior Bowl prospects here in just a second. Your phone calls are welcome, 615-737-1045. Tyler in the Zone TV chat, where you can watch the show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. How about if the replay is shown on the video boards in the stadiums? If they can see the missed call, they should make it where they can reverse it before the next play. I mean, but that's what they're doing when they go into the hood. They don't need the video board. They have a screen literally in front of them. Now, whether they choose to use that consistently is another matter, i.e. the Tennessee Titans against the Jacksonville Jaguars. How quickly that was decided that the call on the field stood that Josh Dobbs had fumbled, when everybody from a variety of different angles, I think it wasn't consensus clearly because the refs thought it was different, but that turned into the play that literally lost them the game with 2:51 left to go in the fourth quarter, the scoop and score by Jacksonville on a play that was called a fumble by Josh Dobbs. When we saw that exact same play from Patrick Mahomes this postseason, we saw the exact same play from Josh Allen this postseason. Both were ruled incomplete passes, and it was just a matter of, in the moment, I believe Bill Vinovich was the head of the officials, the head official on that Jacksonville Titans crew, who just decided, okay, that's the call that we're rolling with. No need to review it any further than we did. And Mike Vrabel saying, I didn't even see the replay. That's the kind of place that we have this thing. And Lucas, you said Steven is up next. Steve in Nashville is next. Hey, Steve.
What's going on, my friend?
Not much, brother.
Hey, this is simple to fix. Go to VAR like soccer. Have somebody in New York going, got to review it. Buzz the damn referee, and you got to review instantaneously. This shouldn't take 15 seconds. Have a good
Lucas, is VAR, I mean, how do you feel about VAR? Because I know soccer fans have mixed emotions more often than not.
Yeah, I will say it is. I don't know if it is the model for officiating being better. It has certainly improved things. It's better to have some method of review than none at all, and let bad calls stand with no method of accountability whatsoever. But I mean, there is that, right? There's an element of that when New York calls for a play to be reviewed. You know what I mean? Like in soccer, for every game there's VAR, there is a VAR official, which I do like that concept of just one VAR official that is part of the officiating crew, but he is basically in a control room with nothing but monitors that determines, yeah, hey, we need to take a look at that.
So we'll see what determinations the league actually makes, but it's notable that Adam Schefter is out here discussing it publicly the way that he was on the Pat McAfee show. I think that as as we have this mass turnover, I think there was something like 14 new officials in the last 3 seasons that they've been integrating into the league. And so much of this, how much is muscle memory? How much is it that the rules are constantly being adapted? The rules do change on a more frequent basis, that it feels like, or at least modifications to the rules are changed to where it leaves more interpretation as a part of the process. I just feel like more hands on this thing doesn't make it better. And the cleanest solution, the thing that they have been most unwilling to try, and I don't know what the officials union position is on full-time referees, if that's something that they are actively advocating for or against. I don't know specifically. I'd be surprised if they were advocating against it, but I do feel that to make this thing a full-time position is the cleanest possible solution that can accomplish the most things. Dedicated officials whose full-time job it is to be officials, even if the only time that they are displaying their job responsibilities is on Super Bowls or on during an NFL Sunday. But at that point, I mean, I don't know if there's a collaborative effort, because with the leagues as far as utilizing officials for different sports, but surely to God you can find ways to make full-time officials for a variety of different sports in a way that would satisfy everybody. Danny is in Murfreesboro up next. Hey, Danny.
Hey, what's up, Buck? So as the resident Bengals fan of the 1045 community, I mean, I can speak to the officiating, and it wasn't the best in that AFC Championship game. The late hit call on Joseph Asai was absolutely the right one, as heartbreaking as that was. But, I mean, you're hitting the nail right on the head here. We're talking about a friggin' sports league that just got the largest TV contract in the history of sports from YouTube TV. They can afford to pay year-round salaries for these guys to come in here and be professional referees and professional referees only, to hone their craft and their art and their understanding of the game with the ever-changing rule book that the NFL presents to them. It shouldn't be this difficult. The fact that teams can scheme around the way referees work to huddle up to the line to give an incomplete catch a completed status on the game stat line is inappropriate, and it's unacceptable, especially when we're talking about conference championship games. Of course, it was a blowout game in the end, but it doesn't change the fact that the call was wrong, egregiously wrong, and they should have had an opportunity to slow things down a bit and really take a look at it. And I think that it's more important for teams to have the opportunity to have that looked at than it is to run back.
Thank you for the call, Danny. That's 60 seconds on the clock. We haven't heard the Oscars music in a while. Lucas is juggling, literally spinning a lot of plates back there, so I do appreciate his commitment to the bit. I do think that here's the thing. All right, you're always going to have some degree of error when you're working on a human basis. And even listen, if we turn this thing over to Skynet or something like that, there are still going to be errors. Like, technology screws up too. And at least in that moment, I don't know if you feel better about. I mean, for God's sakes, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we still use down and distance, literally chain gangs to measure this thing. So, the fact that we're willing to go with a scientific approach to a degree, it always makes me laugh every time I see somebody that you would find at like your local church's fish fry on Saturday out there working the chains and trying to determine the down and distance in a game of incredible stakes, and obviously where there's a lot of financial implications involved. But I think that this is something that people are passionate about, and the league. I mean, listen, the idea that the league is hearing you for once. I mean, the league is reactive, if nothing else, and they're reactive to optics, if nothing else. And the optics of the AFC Championship game, along with several other games this season, going back several years, really since this officiating sea change started, the optics are poor, and the league will react to that, if nothing else. Lucas, you've said that name into my ear 3 times. Harrison and Franklin is next. Hey, Harrison.
How you doing, Buck?
Good, buddy.
Here's kind of a virtual technology upgrade that I think makes a lot of sense. I work in law enforcement, and we use, all sorts of virtual technology and 360 screens to do training on. Think about this scenario. If you've got referees that are now doing this as a full-time job, even take it in part-time, 20 hours a week of them in virtual games, learning to make calls, being able to be reviewed of whether they missed a call. You could take pin cameras that wouldn't take up a lot of extra weight or whatever, and in one season you could have all the refs wear those and have those perspectives from their, where they would be looking anyway as on the field. In one season, you could have a huge body of work of all the games where, like, a line judge could go through the VR and for training as a line judge, the umpire, each position that the refs have, and do that 20 hours a week of real game experience. I mean, it would keep everything really sharp, I think, in a way that nobody's been doing.
Which is crazy, Harrison. That may be the best. That's definitely the best submission that we've had on this, because, we all see those commercials. And I mean, for those of you who are still watching cable television, I know it's funny. I had some people over at the house the other day. We're watching something on cable, and the idea that people hadn't seen commercials for the first time in 3 years because of the way that all my friends are cutting the cord. But either way, we've seen commercials for the VR. You want to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, right? You put on the headset, you're literally quarterbacking the Dallas Cowboys. Why the hell can't the NFL, with all of their financial resources, dedicate that to the officials and be able to replicate that in the way, or at least simulate that in a way that Harrison has just outlined? It's the thing that makes the most sense. For God's sakes, if we can come up with a solution in 20 minutes of sports talk radio, surely one of these suits sitting in a conference room somewhere on Park Avenue can come up with the idea, or at least steal somebody's idea to make this thing better. I don't care if you steal it from Harrison or not. Maybe throw them some tickets to a game or something like that. If nobody has thought about the virtual reality component of this, but if we can simulate what it's like to play quarterback in an NFL game, surely we can find ways to make this a better training ground in some form or fashion for the officials. Who, I don't fault them. I really don't. They're in a bad spot. It's a tough job, but they need to be better. Everybody is acknowledging this, and it just can't have the kind of impact on games that it's had. Anyway, there will be more reporting on this as the weeks and months go on in the offseason, certainly combine and owners' meetings, as we mentioned, places where the entire league is together. These are the things that will be worked out, or at least brought to the table, and look for solutions on. In the meantime, we need to talk about a draft prospect. We didn't get to this story yesterday. Stetson Bennett, the now two-time national championship winning quarterback, arrested in Dallas. What to make of him as a draft prospect, especially with this latest news? Your phone calls are welcome. 615-737-1045 is the number. We are, of course, broadcasting live from the Senior Bowl here in Mobile, Alabama. Our coverage presented by our friends at Scoreboard Bar and Grill, Two Rivers Ford, and Mitsubishi Electric. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. You don't have to go through yet another year with that knee or back pain. People with chronic joint Hey, man, we got news. So Paul Kaharski is reporting that the Tennessee Titans are switching Nissan Stadium to a high-tech artificial surface for next season. I'm reading the report right now, paulkaharski.com. The move is spurred by NFL studies showing the team's natural surface may have contributed to more lower body injuries from 2018 to 2021 than the 6 NFL venues that use the sort of monofilament fields the team will now turn to. So it's been Bermuda sod grass since the building opened in 1999 as the Coliseum, the Adelphia Coliseum. And obviously, like, the maintenance of this thing is a giant pain in the ass for them because not only do the Titans play there, but they have the Music City Bowl. They have TSU home games. They have concerts. They have all manner of events throughout the – hell, they had Nashville SC there for the better part of 2 years. They are trying to find ways to keep this thing sustainable. And also – the injury situation for the Titans is one of the biggest talking points of anything. So I'm fascinated to know, I don't know this off the top of my head. Mike Vrabel gave us the number at Rand Carthon's introductory press conference. 90% of their injuries that they sustained this year happened on the field of play. How many of those happened at home versus on the road in this time span? Literally, Mike Vrabel's tenure, 2018 to 2021. Mike's like, I'm tired of this bleep. We're getting rid of it. Wow. That's kind of wild. I mean, right? So the record 91 players in 2021. This year, just as almost as bad, 86 in 2022. And injuries around the league are a part of this at any given point. But if they feel that switching this turf, or rather the sod, to this artificial, I don't know what monofilament means. Plastic is what Kirby is saying. Thank you for all your wisdom, Kirby. If they feel that moving to this kind of playing surface is going to make sense, then, I mean, at least they're trying to do something. I know people hammer them for the strength and conditioning staff, but this is a thing that they obviously think is real. Paul, in this article, cites Derrick Henry's interview with LaJuan and Compton on Bussin' with the Boys a couple of weeks ago. They had Henry on, and the quote was, quote, I got hurt on a – Derrick was asked basically about turf versus grass. And what Derrick said is, I got hurt on a turf field, so you know how I feel about it. He's talking about the Jones fracture that happened in Indy back in 2021. There's been so many injuries that happen on turf fields. I mean, it's just proven – it's not really good for the league and, for our bodies. Really, for players, I think we're just tired of seeing people get hurt on turf. So, who's on the hook for this is my question. Because, if it's happening at Nissan Stadium, is that something that is, where are the funds, I guess, coming from for that? The Nashville General Fund? No, because they negotiated that out as a part of the new stadium deal. Kirby, turn your microphone on.
That's a new stadium. They replaced that. They're on the hook for that. They've already had to replace it twice. My yard has some of the last field that they replaced in it.
Does it really?
Yeah, well, yeah, a person that I know, Public Works, I had stuff that they had messed up, and they brought 2 dump trucks load, or smaller truckloads, of soil out to fix the spot that they had gaffed, and it turned out to had come from Nissan Stadium when they replaced the most recent replacement of the turf. But that means they're going to have to replace all of their practice field, or at least 2 of the practice fields at St. Thomas, because they're going to have a matched surface to practice on.
Yeah, and they can't send them in the bubble every day.
Right, so you're going to have 2 outdoor monofilament or, artificial fields, and at least 1 grass for the places where they might be able to practice when they're going to go play that. So they're on the hook for those 2 replacements, and at least the stadium, and then they're going to replace the stadium. So how much are they going to spend on a fake field for 2 seasons?
Yeah.
And to ditch the whole thing? None of that makes sense.
There's
monetarily.
There's a lot of irony in this.
Yeah, there is.
Explain.
Because I'm already seeing the instant reaction from fans on YouTube about, oh, great, JTB says, highest injuries for the last 2 years. Let's add turf and just shoot for that record. Already seeing the conversation on social media. Oh, good. Titans the most injured team in the league. So let's put turf in Nissan Stadium and just see if they can jack that up. When in the report by Kaharski, it says the move is literally spurred by NFL studies that show the team's natural surface may have contributed to more lower body injuries in the last 4 years.
And again, it's not lost on me that time frame, 2018 to 2021, Mike Vrabel is looking around and being like, how many injuries have we had since I got here? How much longer am I going to have to pull, Andrew Adams off the street to play safety for me because Amani Hooker gets hurt on the Titans playing surface, or guys out there looking like a slip and slide after the Music City Bowl when they take the field and literally like half the Vols logo is painted over like half the Titans logo and it looks like an absolute damn mess.
The other thing is it also coincides with the last bargaining agreement when they went to go on Girl Scouts during training camp.
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
According to Ian Rappaport, the Baltimore Ravens will be franchise tagging quarterback Lamar Jackson this offseason. He adds that his sense is it would be the exclusive franchise tag, which prevents other teams from signing Lamar.
Prevents other teams from signing Lamar, but doesn't prevent them from tagging and trading Lamar. Right. That is an important clarification. Let's talk about this because I think that's the first sign that Lamar Jackson is not going to be with the Ravens in 2023. And that opens up a complete can of worms about almost every other team's quarterback situation, that it does not have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, whomever right now entrenched thoroughly in their position. Everybody's going to want a piece of Lamar Jackson. So why don't we talk about that coming up next, the final hour of the show. Don't forget, Rand Carthon, the new Titans general manager, is going to join us at 12:20. Stick around. Live from Mobile, it's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:59. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Changes coming to Nissan Stadium. A report by Paul Kaharski stating that the Titans are switching Nissan Stadium from artificial grass to high-tech artificial surface, reportedly spurred by NFL studies showing the team's natural surface may have contributed to more lower body injuries over the course of the last few years. Also, a report from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network that the Baltimore Ravens are set to franchise tag quarterback and former MVP Lamar Jackson. Live at the Senior Bowl in Mobile is the Buck Rising Show, and coming up in about 20 minutes, new Titans general manager Rand Carthon will make his first appearance on the show. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's the final hour on our last day from Mobile, or our first day from Mobile. We just got here. What am I talking about? It's a lot of stuff happening here at the Senior Bowl. No, Kirby, it was not a late night. In fact, this is the earliest night I've had in quite some time, basically since the season ended. But it's good to be back in the swing of things down here at Mobile, where we'll talk about some prospects. And Titans GM Ran Carthon will join us on this show for the first time here in just about 20 minutes from now. Your phone calls are welcome, 615-737-1045. Hop on at any point. We've had a lot of different moving parts and pieces around here that I keep trying to get to these damn prospects. Haven't been able to do so just yet. But with the news that Paul Kaharski is reporting about the Titans installing a high-tech artificial surface in Nissan Stadium before next season is fascinating to me. Obviously, people have thoughts on that, given the stigma that is associated, certainly by players, associated with playing on artificial surfaces for a team that has experienced more injuries than any other in the last two seasons. Then there is now I've just gotten a DM about this, and apparently this has been in the works with both the practice fields and stadium being tested for the better part of the last year. So it's just getting reported now, but apparently the field revamp has been discussed for quite some time at this point. And then there is the circumstance for the Titans about, okay, well, you're doing this now and then building a new stadium by the time that the 2026 season gets underway. By the way, did you see John Cooper announced he's not running for mayor again?
I did.
He's not running for re-election? I don't know. I don't know if that. I mean, they have the stadium deal approved at this point, so I don't know if that has any impact on future stadium implications. But did you see who Nate Rao expects to be very, very much out there as somebody running for office again?
Is it Kirby?
It should be. Kirby, would you run for office?
I've been asked that in the past. No joke.
No, I believe
my
it.
answer was no. I did at one point held an elected office, but it wasn't a public office. It was a company office.
Kirby's first move would be to lower the legal age to buy cigarettes to 13.
No, actually, I wouldn't. I would make it 21.
Oh, eat it, Lucas.
But there would be some changes. I'd get with my advisors, and we would confer, and we would have a press release.
Would Lucas and I be on the advisory board?
No. But Lucas, you might want to start looking into that racing bike company I was asking you about. No, I was kidding. Panzica.
Anyway, no. Former Mayor Megan Barry is being discussed as somebody who's going to return for a run for office. How about that, bleep? I would be fascinated to see how that would play out. Anyway, let's hear, Lucas, would you mind pulling that clip that you had of Ian Rappaport talking about the Lamar Jackson situation? Because obviously quarterback here with the Titans is something that's going to be discussed, both with Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill, an uncertain circumstance at this point. A lot of quarterbacks are being discussed for a potential opening here in Tennessee should they decide to make a change whatever that change and whenever that change might look like, hypothetically. But Lamar Jackson, there is audio. It's on the Pat McAfee Show's Twitter account. If you would pull that, I just saw it on my timeline, Lucas. The Lamar Jackson situation is obviously fascinating because his circumstance, the PCL sprain that did not allow him or was keeping him from playing for the better part of a month, and obviously missing the team's wild card game against the Cincinnati Bengals that was very, very closely contested. By the way, congratulations to Tyler Huntley on making the Pro Bowl. What the bleep?
And Derek Carr.
Derek Carr's in the Pro Bowl?
Yep.
Okay, I hate the Pro Bowl. I despise the Pro Bowl. And it's no disrespect to those two whatsoever. But Derrick Henry and Tyler Huntley have the same amount of passing touchdowns this year. I don't.
So, and Josh Dobbs, who played in 2 games versus Huntley's 6?
That's correct. So, just send the Pro Bowl into the sun. I don't care how many different long drive competitions you want to put the Mannings' faces on as a part of an ESPN promotional product to fill air. No thank you to the Pro Bowl. But Lamar Jackson, so Ian Rappaport is on the on the Pat McAfee Show talking about the circumstance for the Ravens quarterback. Now, this is not a report as of yet. It is not officially happening. But the expectation of what is to happen with Lamar Jackson is what is being discussed in this clip. We know that we played that audio for you last week of Jay Glazer, the Fox Sports NFL insider, saying that he expected Lamar to be tagged and then traded. Now, if that happens, Lamar Jackson at $45 million is not going to be a cost-effective solution for anybody, even though he is a former MVP at the position. What it is going to cost to get Lamar Jackson, given that there was 5 picks and 3 players that were moved around in the Russell Wilson deal from Seattle to Denver. What on earth would it cost to get Lamar? But in the meantime, let's hear from Ian Rappaport.
Yeah, Rap Sheet, all the tags were released except for the exclusive franchise tag prices. Are there any players that you know right now that will be tagged no matter what, whether it's some guys from the Bills, Lamar Jackson, or there's any names there that you know now?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson is going to be tagged. I will.
Exclusive or non-exclusive?
So I don't firmly know the answer. My sense is it would be the exclusive.
Okay.
Because here's why.
So, yeah.
If they give him the non-exclusive tag, then someone can sign Lamar Jackson to an offer sheet and get him with the price of 2 first-rounders. If it's the exclusive tag, it costs Baltimore more. However, if at some point, and I don't think they will, but at some point they ever want to trade him, they set the price. So it'd be more than 2 first-rounders. So if we get the exclusive tag, it basically raises the price in the event of a trade, which I don't think is going to happen.
Okay, so Rappaport is saying he doesn't think a trade is going to happen. Jay Glazer has been out there publicly saying he believes that Lamar will be tagged and traded before the 2023 season. Again, all of this, around the reports that the Ravens are interested in interviewing Eric Bieniemy for their open offensive coordinator position as they try and find ways to keep Lamar happy in Baltimore. Now, Rapp saying that he doesn't think Lamar is going to be traded is interesting because now that's 2 NFL insiders with, I know they're not outright reporting it. It's more of their opinions on the situation. But, Glazer doesn't put stuff out there without knowing it's fact. That's something that I think, not that Rappaport and Schefter and people at that level are erroneously reporting the news, but there is a trust that I have, and I think the NFL community has in Jay Glazer, that is going to be triple-sourced and verified before it even makes an appearance as a part of a discussion, even if it's just an opinion. So if Lamar is tagged, how much of this is going to kind of tilt things not in favor of the Baltimore Ravens? Because players hate the tag, hate it, even if it's going to get him $45 million in 2023. A fascinating situation to keep an eye on as we talk about quarterbacks in this offseason cycle moving forward into this year. Now, going back to the stadium discussion, the Titans have put out a release, and I will read that for you right now as to the move to go to an artificial playing surface. Monofilament, as Kirby tells me, is plastic. and this is something that the team has officially addressed. Prior to the 2023 NFL season, Nissan Stadium will transition to a monofilament synthetic turf playing field. Careful review of both injury data and the growth patterns of natural grass in the region led the team to the decision. It goes on to say about the natural grass surface being in place since 1999. It's been something that's difficult to maintain, both because of the climate zone and because of the amount of events that take place on Nissan Stadium's surface. This is a quote from the president and CEO of the team, Burke Nihill. I think our grounds crew is among the best in the National Football League. Ultimately, there's just a limit to how much can be done for a natural grass surface in this part of the country. This turf is cutting-edge technology and will be a huge improvement in terms of consistency and performance. Literally, the last sentence in this release says the Titans are assuming all costs for the project, which removes the question of who's footing the bill for this out of the equation, given that under the terms of the current lease for Nissan Stadium, the city of Nashville and the general fund were on the hook for keeping the stadium up to date as far as the facility is concerned. So that is something that the team placed the Matrix Helix surface with organic infill in its indoor practice facility last year, so in the bubble. And the combination is also in place at the other NFL team facilities. Nissan Stadium will become the first NFL stadium with the technology of a synthetic turf system that incorporates organic infill. So they're doing this 2 years, 3 years, I guess, before the new stadium is set to open. My question would be, for the powers that be, is this something that is just simply transferable? Can you just wheel this thing into the new stadium? I don't think that's I don't know enough about the construction or deconstruction about these things, but perhaps Thomas in Nashville does. He says he's a contractor for the new stadium. Hey, Thomas.
Yes. I just wanted to clarify one issue. Something most people don't understand. The climate zone, as you just said, won't let Bermuda grass grow through the season. The stadium does not have the modern technology of underground heating that would allow the grass to grow, and they're having to strip that field 4 times, up to 4 times, just through the season. So they're resodding that field, counting CMA, 4 to 5 times every year.
That's a very important clarification. Thank you for providing the context for us, Thomas. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. So, how the players respond to this, it doesn't seem to be of great relevance, because despite more and more calls for teams to move from artificial surfaces to turf, or rather to grass surfaces, it seems to be unrealistic for a variety of different facilities. And the idea that an underground heating system to keep Bermuda grass growing throughout the course of the year is not something that certainly I had considered. I assume the NFLPA has better people on this than just our crack research team around here, Kirby, Lucas, Robert, and myself. But it is going to be interesting to see how it is that players respond to this. I haven't seen any commentary from them just yet on social media, at least here locally. We will we'll hear from Titans General Manager Rand Carthon. He's going to join us coming up next. Our first conversation with him, live from the Senior Bowl. We'll also get into some prospects and a discussion around Stetson Bennett, the 2-time national championship winning quarterback who declined his Senior Bowl invitation and recently got into some legal trouble this past weekend. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. All set? Good. Live here from the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Buck Rising here with you, and Titans. All set? Live here from the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Buck Rising here with you, and Titans' new general manager, Rand Carthon, kind enough to give me some time. What's going on, boss?
Hey, man, just here working.
All set? Good. Live here from the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Buck Rising here with you, and Titans' new general manager, Rand Carthon, kind enough to give me some time. What's going on, boss?
Hey, man, just here working. Getting a chance to meet these guys.
All set? Good. Live here from All set? All set? Good. Welcome back to Mobile, Alabama, the site of the 2023 Senior Bowl. The sun is out. The fog is lifted. By God, Kirby, we can see the bay. Lifting. Not quite lifted, but lifting. Still out there as we it's a lovely scene here at the Mobile Convention Center, and we're very happy to be joined now by Titans General Manager Rand Carthon for the first time on our show. All set? Good. Live here from the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Buck Rising here with you, and Titans' new general manager, Rand Carthon, kind enough to give me some time. What's going on, boss?
Hey, man, just here working. Getting a chance to meet these guys, and actually just really met a lot of the road guys for the first time. So it was good to see them in their environment, really get to know them, and just another part of the process.
I mean, what's that dynamic like? You mentioned the road guys. You're obviously trying to get as much of your feet under you as humanly possible right now, but you're trying to balance, all your new personnel as well as trying to figure out, who the next Titans are going to be and going through your process and things that are normal but not really.
Yeah, I mean, like I just said, it's all a part of the process. So, the first thing I did when I was hired, I called each individual scout, just establish a relationship, tell them about myself and what the expectation is going to be. And, all the guys have been great. They've been really responsive. Being able to get here and meet them all in person was huge, and spend a little time with them. Tonight we're going to do a little, department dinner. Just to kind of break bread and, talk, and another way to get to know each other. And, the biggest thing I've learned so far is that time isn't mine. So, you have to create time for what's important. And what I mean by that is getting the time in early in the morning, late at night to get the film, spend time with the guys in the office as well. So, and then spending the day doing the job, no matter what that is in all facets. And so it's been a process. And it's a process that, we'll continue to do. But, man, I'm just excited. And, one thing you'll learn about me, I'm just ready to do the work.
No question. Titans General Manager Rand Carthon, our guest here at the Senior Bowl. The relationship element of that, it's something that I know in talking to people who you've come into contact with and hearing your introductory press conference, that's obviously something you place a high value on, but that's not something that necessarily everybody would prioritize as heavily. Why is that so important to you?
Like I've said numerous times, and you'll continue to hear me say, like, I've seen it done, the best way through Kyle and John. And how those guys are adjoined at the hip, how they spend time with each other, how John understands, the scheme as if he's on Kyle's coaching staff. And it's our job as personnel guys to get the players that fit our respective schemes. And so I feel like me growing my relationship with Mike, me growing my relationship with his coaching staff will allow me to have a better understanding, allow our scouts to have a better understanding of what it takes to be a Titan and what that looks like on the field, and allows us to go out there and find it.
I was listening to your interview with the morning show. It sounded like they're trying to get you and Mike in a bar fight.
Well, that's always a thing, but like Ramon said, he said he'll take me and Vrabes over anybody. So we might be the new Hawk and Animal, the new Road Warriors.
So as far as you mentioned Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, the 49ers, obviously the NFC Championship game this weekend. Incredible run by that team throughout the course of the year. And just Brock Purdy, such an incredible story throughout the course of the season. He has the ulnar nerve injury on the first drive. He comes back in, he finishes the game. Timelines or whatever that's being reported. But what can you say about the toughness of a player like that, who obviously you came to know throughout your time at San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, that was, an emphasis was we wanted tough guys, in the building. Everyone knows the brand of football the 49ers play, and you have to be able to exhibit that toughness. And at a position like quarterback, you wouldn't think that there's an emphasis, but there's also an emphasis on physical toughness as well as mental toughness. And all of the quarterbacks have it, and so that's kind of a prerequisite. Kyle holds those guys to a high standard, as does Brian Griese, who's played it and played in that system, so he knew what it took. And so that was just a part of who and what we wanted a 49er to be.
Titans General Manager Rand Carthon, our guest here on 104.5 The Zone, live at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Obviously, a lot of incredible draft prospects going to be down here. The situation kind of unique with a lot of older dudes given the COVID eligibility situation. Is there any stigma with scouting an older player trying to understand, how far along they are in their development, how much better they can be, how much does that actually factor in?
I mean, it factors in because a lot of our business is about development, and then about upside and where a guy can go. But I think also having the older guy is just more tape to evaluate. You get to see more concrete evidence, and I think it's less of a projection, over a guy that's coming out, maybe as a redshirt sophomore has only got 2 years of tape, or a true junior. It just gives you more tape, more things to evaluate to allow you to make a better and more informed decision.
For last year was my first year down here, and it was an incredible experience to kind of see, at least one of the starting points of what it is that you guys go through when you're building a team, but to kind of see the way that players are able to make themselves money, for lack of a better term, throughout the course of this week. How important is it for you guys to be able to get to Mobile, work with these guys, see them in person, as you mentioned, like the coaches, for example, starting to get into the draft process really heavily at this point? How big of a part of the draft process is Mobile?
I think it's huge, and like I've said earlier, it allows us to get our hands on these guys more, right? It allows us to ask questions that that we may have from after years of going into the school, and then for the coaches that are here, I've seen a few head coaches walking around. Allows them to ask pointed questions specifically about their scheme, to players that they're familiar with or want to become familiar with. And so again, the more exposure, the more live exposure, the more you have the ability again put your hands on these guys and get a feel for them. Again, goes back to as another partner allowing you to make an informed decision.
For you guys, for when you spoke at your introductory press conference, obviously, just getting here, trying to, establish your relationship with Mike beyond what the interview process has been, and working with the Titans organization, the roster evaluation for you, how has that gone throughout the course of the last week and a half, I guess?
It's been going well. Again, like we talked about, building my relationship with Mike, I've been able to, reach out to some of the players, some of our veteran players, some of our younger players, guys that have been in and out of the building, whether by phone, or popping down in the weight room to meet guys, or having guys, come up. It's been good to, really get to know these guys as people. I firmly believe that they're only players when they're in your building, and they're people anytime outside of that. And so it's important for me to get to know the person. So I've been taking my time, from that aspect, and just really getting to know, some of the guys that have been here, some of the guys that have put in a lot of work and helped this organization win a lot of football games.
As you guys continue to try and fill out the rest of the coaching staff, for example, how much of that impacts the work that you'll do, not necessarily understanding at this point what direction you may be headed in with offensive coordinator, for example?
Even from from an offensive coordinator standpoint, I think Mike has a general idea of what he wants that to look like. And so we can have those preliminary conversations, and then those conversations become more pointed, once we name an offensive coordinator. And then we'll know specifically the fine details, of what he was looking for in that offense. So, but I think from a basic general knowledge, I think Mike knows what he wants, and we're able to, at least get the ball rolling.
You settling into the city, all right?
I'm settling into my hotel in the facility. A friend of mine just opened a place in the city, so I was able to go there Friday for an hour or two, just to show my support. But other than that, like I said, I'm gonna keep the main thing, and do the work. And especially with my family not being in town right now, I got nothing to go home to, and so I spend as much time in the building as I can. And so at some point I'll get out and explore Nashville. I have family in Nashville, a lot of close friends that are ready to show me the city, but I'm just keeping the main thing right now.
Now wait, you got the paparazzi out though. I saw you and Freddie Gibbs on the internet this weekend.
And that is exactly why. I was only there for an hour, and I got in and got out.
It's a pretty unique situation, but glad to have you in Nashville. Congratulations on the new position, and looking forward to see where you go from here. That's Titans GM Ran Carthon here with us at the Senior Bowl. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. So a lot of things there that I'm just fascinated to see how he goes about the process, and obviously the relationship building element of it is key. You heard me bring up the idea that he's still getting to know a lot of the area scouts that are currently on the Titans staff, and to the best of my knowledge, there have not been any changes made under Rand Carthon from what was John Robinson's staff. Now, I think that's an interesting dynamic to consider. And how long that stays the case, I'm sure there will be some adjustments at some point in time. But I do think it's good of somebody like Rand to come in with the prerogative of creating these relationships, individually calling the area scouts. Now he's starting to meet them for the first time, or has since he's got into town, and he talked about the things that they're getting ready to do as a staff later this afternoon once the practices and meetings conclude. By the way, meetings start at like 7 a.m. here, and they go through 11 o'clock at night with some of the players. It's an exhaustive process, just similar to the combine, and obviously the guy's got to work in a practice in there between, but this is how things go at this time of year. So for Rand Carthon, he's giving them the opportunity to the people who worked under John Robinson to establish themselves as being worthy of staying on. And how long that takes, whether they get through this draft process and they decide after the fact, or whether something needs to be adjusted as we work towards that at the end of April. Here in the coming months, I'm fascinated to see. Now, JTB on YouTube brings up a good point. Makes no sense for them to clean house in the scouting department. Those guys have been working all year for the draft. Sure, but I think my thing is like no changes whatsoever for a scouting staff headed up by a person who just lost his job in the middle of the year. Maybe that's the kind of kicking the butt people need to work a little harder, scout a little better. I don't know how that necessarily works for motivation, other than to scare the holy bleep out of a bunch of area scouts who are living probably paycheck to paycheck and scouting Lucas Panzica's South Dakota State Jackrabbits in their free time.
Go Jacks.
Thousands of miles of just whisper "Go Jacks" at me.
At everybody.
Okay, well, I don't know when you're talking to just me or when you're talking to everybody. I can't physically see you at this point. Okay, excellent. Dead fish in my lap. Thank you so much for all of your good work. So yes, this is something that they're having to work through as an organization, and then to the idea of the roster evaluation. It sounds like he's in a good place with it. Obviously not willing to give a ton of detail on, for example, hey, Rand, you're going to bring Ryan Tannehill back? That's not where they're at with things right now, nor did I expect him to disclose information like that to me. But I do think that we find out what his imprint will be very, very soon in the middle of this process. Now, there's a couple of things in the world, since we're down here and college football or college football prospects is the focus at this stage. A couple of different things to note. Now, we're going to talk about Stetson Bennett here in a second. Lucas, you sent me an article, though, from Football Scoop about Nick Saban that I think is worth discussing here, because obviously college football coaches, not just head coaches who are down here for good PR, but for people like Nick Saban who are interested in interviewing offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators at this stage. You sent me an article from Football Scoop about Nick Saban's pursuit of one particular coordinator to fill the offensive coordinator role. Ryan Grubb, who is currently with Washington, who helped them jump from 72nd to 1st in passing in one single season. And the idea that Ryan Grubb has turned down Alabama to return to Washington, is that what I'm reading accurately in this report?
Now the report that you're talking about is from Football Scoop about Saban meeting with Grubb about the offensive coordinator vacancy, which would be a great hire, by the way. What he did with Michael Penix and that Washington offense this past season was remarkable. I mean, they took
Indiana football legend Michael Penix.
Right. Michael Penix used to be a turnover machine. And he came into Washington as a transfer and led them to being a top 10 team in scoring offense. He's coming back to college football next season, and he's going to be a preseason, type of trendy pick to be a Heisman finalist. But anyway, Adam Rittenberg of ESPN reporting that Ryan Grubb will remain with Washington after meeting with Nick Saban about the offensive coordinator job. He was a top target at Bama, but will stay with the Huskies.
So what the hell are we to make of that? I mean, like maybe you don't want to pick up and move your family. Like there's any number of family dynamics that can come into this. Like I don't know how old his kids are. I don't know at what's like if say you've got and I'm just purely speculating, but like the idea that maybe Ryan Grubb has a junior heading into their senior year of high school and doesn't want to necessarily pick up and move everything to go to Alabama for a season or two, however long that kind of a coaching experiment lasts. Like there's any number of outside dynamics that can affect one's decision to move jobs, but I mean it is difficult to say no to the greatest coach in the history of college football, especially when you know that can lead you to your next, most directly to your next head coaching opportunity, if in fact that is something that you're interested in pursuing. Or in the case of this year, Nick Saban can run you off like he did as defensive coordinator and send you to Ole Miss to live in squalor. Or you could be Bill O'Brien and go back to the NFL after going through the Nick Saban School of Coaching rehab. I can't speak to this. It's just the report that we have access to that we're reading right now, but I do find it fascinating, don't you?
Yes, that is very interesting. And like you said, it could be a number of things. Grubb could be extremely happy in Washington. He could feel that there is stability in Washington, that he likes his quality of life, as opposed to what that might look like working under the demands of Nick Saban. His family might love it. I have no idea. These are all things that could be factors. He's been on the West Coast since 2017, coaching at Fresno State in some capacity or another. He was the offensive coordinator there from 2019 through 2021, and then this past season was his first year at Washington when he was wildly successful for the Huskies. So, yeah, that is fascinating. I don't know who Alabama turns to next. Reports that Saban has had talks with Todd Grantham, which I'm sure would have Alabama fans feeling some sort of way with the way he was run out of town under Dan Mullen in Florida. Obviously, I think Saban's number one pick, if possible, and Bama fans' number one pick would be Jeremy Pruitt as the defensive coordinator. And I think that'd be a great hire if they could get over that NCAA hurdle, which that is very much a hurdle right now when it comes to Pruitt. But this is interesting. I mean, last time Saban had to do this, he ended up hiring Steve Sarkisian, who obviously is the head coach at Texas. When I say do this, I mean hiring offensive and defensive coordinator in the same cycle. He hired Sark, and he elevated Pete Golding. Well, Golding's now at Ole Miss. Sark's the head coach at Texas. And we'll see if Saban can keep that coordinator cycle churning in an effective manner. By the way, do you know where Ryan Grubb went to college?
Indiana?
South Dakota State.
Go Jacks.
Go Jacks.
Go to break. Let's wrap it up, shall we? At least for today. Heading out to Senior Bowl practice after this. Many thanks to Two Rivers Ford, Mitsubishi Electric, and Scoreboard Bar and Grill making all of this possible. Kirby Allen Kirby as well for keeping things on the rails. We can't do a road trip without Kirby. I did this road trip without Kirby last year, in fact, and I was like a lost child, a babe in the woods. No direction to turn, no snacks packed, and here Kirby is with literally every device that I need humanly possible, reorganizing my equipment bag and sending me on my way to practice with an actual snack. He might as well have brought orange slices for me. Are you jealous, Lucas?
I am jealous. That is what I'm jealous of. I'm also jealous of the good food you get in Mobile, for sure.
Oh, buddy, I am ready for some oysters. They went out. I didn't get in until late last night. I literally braved the fog. Coming across the bridge from Mobile, or to get, it's whatever that giant bridge is that between Montgomery and Mobile. It was low visibility. Either way, we made it. The sun is out. Practice is going to be phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to talking to a lot of fun college football prospects or pro prospects here in just a little bit. 615-737-1045. It's the last call for phone calls if you got them. Stetson Bennett. We talked about Will Levis and his declining of his Senior Bowl invitation. Now that, he has been firmly entrenched, it seems, all season long, really since his junior season, as a first-round pick in this year's cycle. So the cost-benefit analysis for somebody like Will Levis, despite having a down senior season, not the worst thing in the world. In fact, one could hardly blame him for not wanting to risk his money that way if people consistently are talking about him inside the top 10. Then there's Stetson Bennett, who is a day 3 pick, if a pick at all. Now, I would be shocked to see him go undrafted completely because the work that he has done in taking over the last 2 seasons at Georgia, all you can do is commend him, even if you don't think he is the, to be cliche, the straw that stirs the Georgia drink, right? Or cocktail in that case. He declined his Senior Bowl invitation, and this was prior to his arrest in Dallas or the Dallas area over the weekend. He is in Texas to train for the upcoming NFL draft. There's certainly enough tape on Stetson Bennett out there that he doesn't necessarily, it's not going to get much better for him for being out here 3 days at Mobile with dudes that he doesn't know and players that he's meeting for the first time. But it would benefit, I think, him to be in front of NFL coaches. What do we make of Stetson Bennett as a draft prospect at this time?
Well, he's a prospect to be a backup quarterback, right?
So is everybody else down here. There's not, as Kirby says, he's a prospect to be a backup quarterback. In opening the show, we mentioned Jim Nagy saying that this is the first time in 7 years that they haven't had a first-round prospect, according to the Senior Bowl scouts' grades, here in Mobile this weekend. All of these guys are projected backups at this point.
So, I'm trying to find the positives in not going down to the Senior Bowl for Stetson Bennett.
In not going down to
I'm trying to find out what the, aside from the fact that I guess if he was in Mobile right now, he probably wouldn't have been in Dallas getting arrested the other night. But that's besides the point.
And we should clarify quickly before you go on that he was arrested for public intoxication. He was, he was a little tipsy. He was beaten. He was knocking down doors, not physically knocking down doors, but knocking on doors, I guess, in ways that were problematic and got him picked up. Now, I didn't see any videos of him drunk. I did see videos of him leaving the place where he was being detained, trying to hide himself under a hood very poorly. But yes, I think that's a fair thing. Like, why wouldn't, when all the discussion down here is how can dudes make more money for themselves, whether it's the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, the NFLPA Bowl. I know Keith Bullock was out in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl coaching that, or being a part of the coaching staff there. Stetson Bennett making the decision to decline the Senior Bowl, which is the most prestigious of these things, I found curious as well, because the meetings, if Hendon Hooker feels it's so important to try and keep himself in the draftable player conversation, just to show up and do these interviews, should Stetson Bennett not feel the same level of urgency, or is, I mean,
well, but maybe a guy like Hooker would have less to lose because Hooker's obviously not going through any of the drills. He's not practicing. He's showing up to sell himself, to talk to scouts and NFL executives, something that he feels he's very confident he can do, as opposed to maybe a Stetson Bennett that would worry that his stock would go down a little bit. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
No, I mean, should that not be the same concern for Hooker? Like, at least Stetson Bennett is largely running a pro-style offense. Hendon Hooker is coming out of this Josh Heupel, yards-making machine that does not translate to the NFL. Like, this is a dude who's going to be operating in, I mean, one would imagine as uncomfortable a situation as theoretically or hypothetically Stetson Bennett would be. No?
Yeah. I mean, fair enough. It's an interesting decision.
Okay. Well, it doesn't matter because he's not here, and he's out of the drunk tank, last I saw, or at least according to TMZ Sports.
By the way, speaking of quarterbacks, did you see this news about former Tennessee quarterback J.T. Shrout?
No. Lay it on me.
He is headed to Mickey Ryan's own Arkansas State to be the quarterback for Butch Jones.
Wait. How old is J.T. Shrout?
J.T. Shrout did not play for Jones at Tennessee. He was not recruited by Jones. He was a part of Pruitt's first class, I believe. Tyson Helton, now the head coach at WKU, then the offensive coordinator under Pruitt, went and got Shrout from California as a 3-star prospect. He transferred to Colorado. When Prime took over, he hit the portal again, and he's coming to Arkansas State. So I believe this will be his 4th year of eligibility, maybe 5th.
I mean, but that doesn't answer the question of his age, his 4th year of eligibility.
He did not play. He never played or was recruited by Jones at Tennessee.
Well, it says here, that can't be right. It says he's only 23.
Well, if he's been in college for 4 years, then I don't see why that wouldn't be the case.
We don't have to get bogged down. I forget what age I was in college, honestly. Like, it feels... Whoa!
18 to 22.
You're such a jerk.
Rising Show, do it now.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on all non-specialty new Fords. What position will be mocked to the Titans the most leading up to the NFL draft? Jim Wyatt already putting out his mock draft roundups. 88% say offensive line, which has certainly been the case early on. 8% say wide receiver. 2% say tight end. 2% say quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be offensive lineman. Kirby, by the way, with the greatest insult in the history of the show, does not like our Star Wars and poll open.
No?
Which is Frank. No, he nothing to do with. He just looked at me very confused as to why we were playing it. I don't think he got the bit that you were cutting me off because I was rambling about J.T. Shrout's age.
Which Senior Bowl prospect are you most interested in? Puka says some that actually are not there. Kenneth says any and all offensive linemen. Beer rules, or Dwayne says this beer rules forever is his Twitter handle.
Hell yeah.
Dawan Jones, the O-lineman from Ohio State.
Yeah, the dude with the 89.5-inch wingspan. It's literally 7.5 foot. Like, I saw something, Jim Nagy, it's a full-grown, like, adult, like, crane or something like that is the same thing as this Ohio State tackle's wingspan. Now, he's 6'8", he's 358 pounds. There's obviously going to be some mobility concerns. But like we're talking about, opportunity for guys like that to make some money. And, Titans have a right tackle right now, but if they think NPF can be better on the left than anything else, who's to say what they would do at offensive line this year?
Which AFC quarterback would have been a better pick than Tyler Huntley to replace Josh Allen at the Pro Bowl? Goody says Jacoby Brissett. SCP says literally anyone else. Jason says Trevor Lawrence, but Lawrence is going to the Pro Bowl. He's replacing Pat Mahomes. And CO says Joshua Dobbs.
Well, I mean, Huntley and Dobbs had as many passing touchdowns as each other this season, so the case could certainly be made if one of them started a playoff game and the other, had his season ended by a fumble ? In Jacksonville.
And what will Sean Payton be doing in 2023? 71% believe he will be working for Fox and not coaching.
Kirby just said coaching the Saints, who decided to retain Dennis Allen this year. Interesting, given the quarterback situation there. But either way, the longer this goes, the more likely it is that Sean Payton ends up back on television because he's asking for $20 million a year and whatever first-round pick a team would need to give up to get him. Okay, very good. That's the show. We're back at it live here from Mobile tomorrow. Going to go talk to some draft prospects now, and we'll bring those conversations back for you. Meantime, I will catch you later this evening, 8 p.m. Central Time on A to Z